1. It is 3 in the morning. You are staring at a pitch-black ceiling, desperately begging for sleep. And then, without warning, your brain decides to hit play. Suddenly, you are vividly reliving a slightly awkward joke you made 3 entire years ago. Or maybe it is just that weird, unreadable look your coworker gave you this morning. You feel it instantly. That familiar, suffocating tightness gripping your chest. In the dead quiet of your room, you actually find yourself whispering the perfect comeback, muttering the exact words you should have said in that moment. You lie there, staring into the dark, silently punishing yourself for being so unbelievably stupid. Why do we do this? Why are we biologically wired to torture ourselves by constantly rewinding a movie that has already ended? And why, out of all the possible camera angles, does the director of this mental movie always choose the exact one that makes you look the absolute worst? 2. Most people will tell you that you are just overthinking. They brush it off as a harmless, slightly annoying habit, but they are entirely wrong. What is actually happening in the dark of your room is not a personality flaw. It is your nervous system executing a deeply exhausting, high-stakes survival mission. To understand why you cannot just let it go, we have to look at a psychological phenomenon called the Zeigarnik effect. It simply means that human brains are hardwired to remember unfinished or interrupted tasks far better than completed ones. It is the exact reason why you cannot stop thinking about a puzzle that is missing its final piece. But here is the critical twist for you. For a sensitive mind, a social interaction is not completed just because you said goodbye and walked away. A conversation is only truly finished when you receive a clear, undeniable signal of social safety. A warm smile. An enthusiastic nod. Words of genuine validation. If the other person gives you an ambiguous reaction, like a slight pause before answering, or a polite smile that does not quite reach their eyes, your brain slams the emergency button. It categorizes that entire interaction as dangerously unresolved. Because it feels unresolved, your brain refuses to archive the memory. Instead, it forces you to process the event over and over again, desperately searching for that missing puzzle piece of safety. In clinical psychology, this agonizing mental loop has a name. It is called post-event processing, and it is quietly draining the life out of you. 3. Let us picture someone. We will call him Min. Imagine a simple, almost bare illustration. A round, stark white head with spiky hair, wearing a bright yellow sweater and dark blue pants. Min has just returned home from what should have been a perfectly normal lunch with his colleagues. Now he is sitting completely still in a dim room. But his mind is deafening. If you could see it, he is sitting trapped, surrounded by dozens of heavy, floating speech bubbles filled with half-finished sentences and haunting question marks. Did I talk too much about myself? Why did my manager look away right when I finished my story? The true agony of this condition is that Min is not just remembering the event. He is aggressively rewriting the script. When you are caught in this loop, you fall down a rabbit hole of agonizing alternative realities. What if I had just smiled and stayed quiet? What if I had used a different tone of voice? You are desperately trying to edit a movie that has already been released to the public. Worse still, you have built a ruthless courtroom inside your own mind. And in this courtroom, you are never just a witness. You play the role of the strict judge, and you are always the guilty defendant. Every slight hesitation, every tiny, awkward silence from that lunch is presented as undeniable evidence of your social failure. And here lies the most tragic paradox of this entire experience. Your brain actually believes it is helping you. The underlying evolutionary purpose of this relentless mental replay is protection. Your mind is trying to dissect the interaction to extract a lesson. It wants to prepare you, to bulletproof you, so you never make the same supposed mistake again. But the cruel irony is that this mental chewing completely drains your emotional battery. By the time you step into your next social interaction, you are not better prepared. You are completely exhausted. You enter the room carrying an invisible armor of stress and magnified self-doubt, which almost guarantees that your next conversation will feel just as overwhelming as the last. 4. Why does a simple, awkward silence feel like a life-or-death situation? It comes down to a tiny alarm system in your brain called the amygdala. When you are caught in that endless replay loop, your nervous system is actually glitching. It is physically trapped in a fight-or-flight state. To your primal brain, the fear of modern social rejection triggers the exact same terror as being hunted by a predator thousands of years ago. But the roots of this exhausting habit usually go much deeper than biology. For many, this is not just anxiety. It is a trauma response born in childhood. Imagine growing up in a home where the adults had highly unpredictable emotions, where a slightly slammed door, a heavy sigh, or a sudden quietness meant an explosion was coming. In that environment, you had to adapt. You learned an intense survival skill called hypervigilance. You became an absolute expert at reading the air in the room. You had to meticulously scan every micro-expression, every shift in tone, and every unsaid word just to anticipate danger and keep yourself emotionally safe. So when you are lying in bed at 3 a.m, obsessively dissecting whether your boss's smile was genuine or slightly passive-aggressive, you are not just overthinking a random Tuesday afternoon. It is the echo of a frightened child. You are still desperately scanning the room to make sure no one is mad at you, because once upon a time, that was the only way you knew how to survive. 5. It is incredibly tempting to romanticize this behavior. You might tell yourself that overanalyzing every single interaction just means you are highly observant. You might believe you are simply a deeply empathetic person, carefully making sure you never hurt anyone's feelings. But we need to be brutally honest here. This is not empathy. This is hypervigilance masking as care. Empathy is about authentically connecting with others. Post-event processing is strictly about protecting yourself, and when this defense mechanism goes unchecked, it quietly mutates. It becomes the very foundation of severe social anxiety. The most tragic part of this loop is what it does to your inner world. Your mind should be your ultimate sanctuary. It should be the one place where you are entirely safe from the judgment of the outside world. But this habit turns that sanctuary into a cold, relentless interrogation room with a spotlight shining directly in your eyes. You are not deeply understanding the world around you. You are just locking yourself inside a prison of your own fear. 6. You are treating your life like a film editor who has completely lost their mind. You are sitting alone in a dark editing bay, frantically cutting scenes, adjusting the lighting, and desperately trying to rewrite the dialogue. But the tragic joke is that the movie has already premiered. The theater is completely empty. The audience went home a long time ago. And here is the quiet, beautiful truth that your anxious mind refuses to believe. The audience was never really watching you that closely anyway. Every single person you meet is entirely exhausted from playing the lead role in their own complicated movie. They are far too busy worrying about their own awkward jokes and their own slightly weird smiles to hyperanalyze yours. Choosing to stop rewinding the tape is not a sign of failure. It is not carelessly giving up. It is an act of profound self-liberation. It is the brave decision to step out of that cold editing room and accept that you are allowed to be a little messy, a little awkward, and perfectly human. You do not need to be socially flawless to be worthy of belonging. It is time to put the remote down. The movie is over. Let it be over. So tonight, when the lights go out and your brain inevitably tries to hit play on an old tape, what are you going to say to it? I would genuinely love to read your thoughts or hear your own stories down in the comments below. If this video finally helped you put words to a feeling you have carried for a long time, please consider subscribing. You can also hit the join button to directly support the deep psychological content we are building here. Until next time, I hope you find a little more peace in the quiet space of your own mind.